So, in the previous lecture, if you remember, we covered up to 1980 rudimentarily, and let's recapture briefly what I actually told you. Please come on in. So, number one, what we were covering, it comes under the approaches or the nature of the Indian state, right? The keywords. Approach, I told you, refers to the way you approach the subject matter. Nature refers to the characteristic, the quality. Okay? And we started with that, and after doing the reading, we also realized that all the writers that are referred in the reading, Vepar Chatterjee, they provide us a different overview of what Indian state is, isn't it? Some say that it is a post-colonial arrangement, that is, most of the bureaucracy and democratic parliamentary system, the civil procedure, the criminal procedure, and so on, and other than that, the high courts and the lower courts, they are a continuation of the colonial administrative political arrangement, no? And so, while describing this particular journey, Parth Chatterjee reminds us in his reading of the people who actually started studying India in a settled manner, no? So the name of, for example, Morris Jones is very prominent. You could actually find out the book Politics in India. I think the title, I have that book, and it's a book, old one, the classic book on India, written very early, I think in the 50s. Politics in India, and the framework of, I told you that I'll be describing these people in detail, no? So that is what I'm actually doing, one by one. So in Politics in India, written in 1950s, your task is cut to find out the exact year. Politics in India, Morris Jones believed in, 1940s and 1950s and 1960s. If you remember the world history, by the way, we realized that after the decolonization, because of the colonial practice all around the world, it was a settled debate that modernity is the way forward, and every single country has to follow the same Western path. We have to progressively become modern, not only the society, but the institutions, culture, and so on. No? So this particular kind of belief was termed as quote-unquote modernization theory. All right? And Morris Jones is writing within that framework. What is modernization theory? Repeat again with me. What did you understand when I told you? What is it? Modernization theory. No? Yes. We have to become modern. And modernization theory means that human progress and the fulfillment, whatever we are capable of, is not possible without establishing modernity, the rational framework of organizing society, politics, culture, and so on. No? So this became known as modernization theory, and the underlying belief behind this theory was a few assumptions, powerful assumptions. Number one, for example, that once India, or for that matter any other post-colonial country, please come on in, goes on to experiment with modernization, gradually caste, creed, language, religion, ethnicity, and so on, the barriers, they will dissolve in the background, and we will have modern, rationally organized institutions through which we shall be able to govern ourselves. That is thesis number one behind modernization theory. First, I told you that the fundamental belief, by the way, that modernization is the way forward. Second, that modernization will do away with so-called primitive identities, and people then can be organized as citizens proper. No? So that kind of thing starting there with Morris Jones, and I think Dalton Palmer, his name, and you will find his name. So these guys are modernization theorists. And of course, when you do the reading and we continue to the course, without being overwhelmed, guys, you need not to apply all of your energy and mind into understanding these particular words. As we move ahead into the course, this whole thing gets circulated time and again. No, so repetition and interconnection in the syllabus. So all of it connected. So after that, we find what was the nature of the Indian state in the 1950s. Key question to understand, no? Because this particular writer, Parth Chatterjee, he's trying to understand the nature of the post-colonial Indian state with respect to time variation. That is, as we are moving ahead into time, from 1947 up to contemporary times, that is, as we are living now. He goes on to talk about Parth Chatterjee and says that the 1950s and 1960s, they were Congress dominant, Indian state was Congress dominant system, one party system, right? So what was the reason behind that, by the way? When somebody tells you something, for example, a proposition or a sentence, you must always be curious why so, no? The question mark. So Congress domination, why? Why Congress domination? Because if you look at the history of the Indian national movement, you will find that in the Indian National Congress, you had you had Subhash Chandra Bose, a socialist, and then you had Jawaharlal Nehru, you had Syama Prasad Mukherjee, a right-wing politician, and you had all this. The key word that you must pay attention to: consensus within Congress, and the commitment to solve the problem not by partisan debate, but by striking a consensus between the competing interests. So Congress had liberals within them, Congress had communists within them, Congress has right-wing politicians within them working together. And Congress was successful since its establishment by A.O. Hume in 1985 in actually uniting, 1885, in uniting the subcontinent also. Alliance or not, that is what we deal next. So Congress dominant system. It means that Congress dominated not only the party system, the state, but it also operated at multiple levels, starting from the village to the intermediate range and then to the province, capturing the whole polity. Okay, concentric circle, and come on in. And the patron-client relationship that it established, that is supporters and the leaders, it was so organized that the command system was at the initial stage highly decentralized. Alright? You must understand it, because then you will see a stark contrast as we move ahead into the next decade. So that is, by the way, you must be aware when Jawaharlal Nehru died, it was 1964. So after that, if you read Indian history, contemporary Indian history, you will find that the Indian polity went into crisis after he died. And of course, I have said a few nice words about Jawaharlal Nehru, and the credit almost goes to him. Unlike any other country, for example, Sri Lanka, we need to have a global perspective while talking about India. No? For example, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, no? These countries could not manage at the initial stages to have a powerful leader who will provide the basic framework, the vision, and the stability for a long time, so that at the initial stage, much turmoil is not there. For example, Jinnah died within 2-3 years. I think he died in 1948 only. No? Then Pakistan became subjected to brutal dictatorship of the military. Same happened after 1971 in Bangladesh, wherein this guy, what was his name, became a dictator, military dictatorship. And I told you this one particular very succinct fact about the world polity, in the recent times that after decolonization, after the World War, India is the only consistently practicing in successful, sustained democracy. All right, the only example, by the way, from third world, which has we do have our own dark times. For example, when this particular statement is given, the period from 1975 to 77 is thought to be an exception to the rule because of the emergency and the repressive use of the state apparatus. No, repressive use of the state apparatus. What do you mean by it? It means that obviously I'm coming to the other decade, the next decade. Repressive use of the, but before that I need to highlight some of the problems. So the here modernization theory dominant Congress system, no, 50s, 60s. But after Indira Gandhi came to power in 1969, before that, what do we need to understand a few facts. We know that India went to war. Number one with Pakistan, not China, and then Pakistan, no? 62 and 64, if I'm correct, no? 1962, 1964. And of course, if you know the status of India when India became free, let me tell you, only 17% of us were literate. Yeah, 17 or 18%. Women even less, 12%. Yeah, you could check it out, but it's not like above 20%. Okay, so we were illiterate, and if there were a lot of doubts if India will be able to manage a democracy in a largely illiterate population, which is not conscious of its rights, responsibilities, and so on. No, because you have this quote, no, that you know. Without education, democracy is not possible. No, proper education, which means that if a citizen is not trained into civics, the art of citizenship, what it means to be a citizen, then that particular polity will not function because then that particular person will not understand what it is to vote, no, what it is to exercise the right to vote. For example, people will get swayed by freebies or by allurements just before the election. You could purchase their vote at a very marginal price, no, because they do not know how powerful their vote is. They look at it in a very what to say, proper word, a very light sense of their right. They do not know how powerful the vote is actually, no. So they will send that vote for $500 in the evening before the election night, no? So that problem was there, and why modernization theory started the story today with that, because in parallel to the modernization theory, when we became free, we had also our supporters. We had in Morris Jones, in Granville Austin, and so many people telling that India will do awesome, and India will succeed one day. We'll have a democracy, functioning democracy. But then we have other people who are not that hopeful about India. They are saying that India, in largely illiterate mass of very feudal mindset, will succumb to dictatorship one day or the other. No, prominent among them are the constitutionalist Robert Jennings. Was not so you will read it his name when we do the Granville Austin reading in our syllabus. Okay, the debate around the Constitution. When we start reading the Constitution, then you will come to know this person. Very doubtful, the skeptics. We, in the literature, the term that you will find is modernization theorists, or the what was the word, by the way, in the reading, Soumya? For those who were hopeful that India will succeed. No? So there's this word in the reading. If you focus one particular word, admirers or whatever you can call them. Let me look at it. In the second page or something, I think. Celebratory, the keyword. They use this celebrate, the word is celebratory. That is, they celebrated India's freedom struggle, and then further the prospects that India will be an autonomous state and will take care of its people. On the other hand, there is this skepticism that India will not succeed. India will succumb to dictatorship one day. But that's the topic of another lecture with respect to how our constitution has worked. No, because this particular working of the constitution only, will the constitution work or not? Some people very hopeful, others not. So we discuss it in that particular section. So the problem, the war, and and then the food shortage because of that in the 1960s, and India having to import a lot of food from outside. So although not in the reading, but because I had this course also when I was doing my college, so I remember what I did at that time. So there was this Lyndon Johnson was the president of the United States, and we used to get wheat from the United States. Okay, under a program termed PL 480. You remember? That was the program. No? PL 480. That was the program under which India used to get wheat. Yeah. So we know always when we are studying politics, politics is never isolated. Politics is a subject which is always operating, taking into account what is happening at the international level, happening at the domestic level. So the international scenario, still I am in the 1950s and 60s only, at that time, is the post-war situation. That is the starting of the Cold War, and then the division of the world politics into the communist and the capitalist bloc. No? And India firmly maintaining a neutral position of non-aligned foreign policy. And at that time, the foreign policy experts in the United States, referring to India's position in the world politics, said that either you are with me or you are not. No, either you are my friend or my enemy, no middle way. So they started criticizing India also and humiliating India. Obviously, you must understand the whole current, what was going on at that time. Because if you will not be able to make sense of what was the situation when we became free, you will never be able to understand the true character of where we are right now. We have started from a very basic situation. Actually, if you look at the GDP, let me tell you, even going before that, between 1900, you of course, I'm sure know this fact. 48, 47, whatever it is, the GDP growth was negative. I mean, it's a negative, below 1, whatever you can call it, 0.01, whatever, it's negative only, consistently, for 50 years. No social infrastructure, only British Army and British administration and the transport system to extract India's resources and to supply it for war purposes. Because the first half of the 20th century is the period of great wars, if you remember. So many wars around the world, no? So war, economy, India, producing, supplying food to the soldiers, Indian soldiers fighting in Europe, and you have memorials for them also. And sometimes, if you remember, there was a famine, or anybody from Bengal in the class. So, in 1943, there was a devastating famine in Bengal
because the British administration, colonial administration, they diverted the food storage, stored food to the soldiers in Europe and artificially created Bengal famine. Around 3 million people, that is 30 lakh people died because of the colonial policies. And that is not the first time. During the British time, we had a lot of famines because British people, they used to steal our money, number one, and food also, to supply to their, of course, our purpose in the class, of course, is to be very generous, no? But not to give myth about the history, to give the full detail.
Sometimes you listen to Sasi Tharoor, isn't it? No? What does he tell? He is very provocative, by the way, in highlighting what Britishers did to India. No? And sometimes he goes on to say that there were so many crimes, horrendous crimes, and you need to pay for it. That is reparation. You pay back whatever you stole from here. No? So that is the story under which we are operating. The aspersions, the doubt, no, and the skepticism about future of India and India's people. Some of it still remains, but our resilience, the Indian people, we are highly resilient people, living on this tiny chunk of land, seventh, I think, area-wise, largest country in the world, but second most populous country in the world. Being able now to maintain a food bank surplus, food security, and supplying to other countries food and so on. So despite all that, you have a reason to be very positive about our country. And of course, patriotism is not what I wish to express in the class, because somebody said that patriotism is the last resort of whom. I don't use that word in the class, okay? So that word is not proper. So not patriotism, rational close outlook and looking at the predicament of our people, trying to understand who we were, where we come from, and how we are right now. So sometimes when you see, of course, I need to finish this thing also, and I'll discuss whatever I wanted to later. So 1960s, you see problem, war, food shortage, and balance of payment crisis, because you have to import, and if you don't have enough dollars, what are you going to pay? So then you have to borrow from some IMF, World Bank, the dollars you have to borrow, so that you can pay in dollars, no? So this problem happening, so Indira Gandhi came to power amid that turmoil. There's food security and the whole skepticism about India. United States completely opposed to. So Lyndon Johnson, why did I mention his name and did not inquire? He referring that either you are with me or you are against me, he said that I will put India on a short lease. Short lease, you see, I will tie India's foot and will not allow Indians to eat food if they do not support us against Russia. No? But then Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister, he was a very dignified statesman of his time. One of the best in the world. I reminded you that quote, no? By the BBC interviewer, the Voltaire. If he would come, where would he go? Some said that he would go to Nehru. No? Nehru was a great statesman of his time. So he was handling all this situation, but sometimes he's blamed for, I don't know, China, war with China and so on. But I don't know if it is proper to blame. Obviously, we need to think about it. So this is the situation, and in 1969, Indira Gandhi comes to power, and then something very radical happens. By that time, if we remember the reading, if we did it, 9 or so states had non-Congress governments.
Yes, sir.
So Congress dominance coming to an end, closing to an end. Although this particular stint, I think, if you read the history, is slow only. Many changes in the government from 1969 to 71. Indira Gandhi comes again with full-fledged majority in 1971, right? Yeah, you want some water or something? Yeah, please have it. Feel free and comfortable. You can do whatever you want. So 1971, Indira Gandhi comes to power, and some people say, just Rudolph, that this was demand polity, and then here it was decentralized system of Congress, and then it was centralized system and command polity, no? Centralized and command polity. And what else, Soumya? Did you guys please help us with the reading? The keywords, find out. Centralized, command polity, state socialism, isn't it? In the reading, this period is being referred to as state socialism period, not the whole of period after 1970s and a little bit of 1980s, when 1984 when Indira Gandhi was assassinated. No, so are you able to understand? By the way, guys, is it making sense to you? who is having problem in understanding? Tell me, what is the problem? Okay. Okay. So here I said the Congress was organized from village to very decentralized system. I said, no? Decentralized means the power flows from bottom to top. Decentralization. No? Centralized means power flows from center to the bottom, just opposite, in contrast to it. No? Indira Gandhi coming to power, and of course you need to do some study to understand that, guys. Okay. Of course, big changes between Nehru and Indira Gandhi was his daughter, but the policies, they were so radically different. So Indira Gandhi, when she came, of course, she was a mother figure in the Indian polity. No, so everybody expected that she would take care of the poor and the vulnerable. No, being a woman. So she did actually that only. Started programs such as Garibi Hatao, no, slogans, and people became also committed and to the belief that the state has the responsibility to take care of the vulnerable. To repeat again, no, because Indira Gandhi is so provocative and almost started this 20-point plan. If you not in the reading, but you could just go and read it, find out what was 20-point plan by Indira Gandhi. Very late of 74, I think it was released. And to understand that, we don't have to overthink or anything. It's just that at that time, all the banks and whatever, it was a mixed economy, if you remember in the description. No? Here it becomes a state socialism, that is nationalization, and towards socialism. So, for example, during the Indira Gandhi's time, leaving away the reading, you see amendments in the constitution. No? 42nd constitutional amendment, amending the preamble of the Indian constitution, adding the word secular and socialist. The word socialist was added in the Indian preamble by Indira Gandhi, state socialism. No? So you can understand. I refer to that particular fact so that you understand what I am talking about. No? What is socialism? That is matter of another debate. But this period, the features of this period is that centralized command quality, state socialism, and Garibi Hatao slogan, and then welfare state coming into conception. Indian state taking the responsibility of taking care of the vulnerable and poor and the food security and so on, because we are now in surplus by that time. No, so the Green Revolution time. No, we must mention that fact. And with the evolution, as we evolve into the 1970s, we find that, of course, if you do some structural reform, structural you understand, guys, isn't it? The word structure is a keyword in politics, so let me clarify it. Structure here refers to legal reforms which create new structures of power. Okay, is it simple? Legal reforms, for example, establishing a commission. You pass a law, establish a commission, a particular institution, and that law itself has the provision for an institution. That institution shall be created, statutory institution created, backed by this law. So it becomes a structure, new structure. For example, Ministry of Women Empowerment or Ministry of Environment, no, legal backing. So new structures started coming up, taking care of the welfare of the people. But along with that, the Green Revolution introduced another element in India. Green Revolution, as you know, and you all must be aware, was not practiced all over India. No, limited to western part of India. So people in these states, what do the writer calls them? Landed elites, I think. Landed elites or big farmers. Sometimes people call them big farmers. uh, they became powerful along with the few famous industry houses in India, for example, Tata's, Dalmia's, and so on. And because they had this advanced power of mobilizing the masses at the grassroots level, so these big farmers started striking alliance with the landed houses to negotiate with the state to further protect their own interest, obviously, no, at the cost of others. So some people, for example, Asutosh Varsne, this is a particular argument, and along with that Rudolph and Rudolph, they are in the same vein arguing this particular thing: the emergence of the big farmer and the alliance between the landed petty bourgeoisie, peasantry, and bourgeoisie in the rural hinterland, and the middle class in the city, so that they can defend their interest against the more uh, uh, more disenfranchised, that is the one who does not have effective rights of from the rural areas and the working class, the labor, no. So allying against them, that is what is happening in the 1970s. Of course, is a period of crisis. We need to actually focus closely. Uh, Obviously, I gave some background to the 20th century itself, from where we came. No, the problem of war, famine, the illiteracy in India, our struggle for freedom, along with that, the skepticism and doubt among people about India's future, and then we, having successfully written a constitution and adopted a democratic polity and civil administration. No, so all of this working in the 1950s and 60s at a very rudimentary. But sometimes when we say that we did so much from the 1950s, we tend to forget that the colonial administration was actually copied in toto. If you look at the Indian Constitution also, you will find that the Constitution of India, passed on November 26, 1949, isn't it? Is actually a lot of it is the Government of India Act 1935, the same reproduced. No, so we find that some people create disjuncture, but because our country became free not through violence, that is total displacement of the colonizer, but through non-violence, that is peaceful withdrawal. No, so it was a situation under which you could sustain certain institutions, isn't it? Yeah, please. Not feeling comfortable? Yeah. Do take care. You want some water or something? So I think we are done also. I'll take it slow, okay? Do the reading. This reading is passive revolution and everything. I'll come back again, okay? Ji? Yeah, why not? You feel very comfortable. Don't worry. So this is I'll come to the key concepts. I think this background was necessary. Otherwise, the reading will flow in a very it will not make sense if I will not provide you proper background. Where does this reading come from? For example, this guy Parchadi talks about political society, civil society, and so on. No, so those are passive revolution. No, those are difficult concepts to understand. Let me tell you, even those who do masters, they do not understand what does the difference between civil society and political society stands for. What is passive revolution, for example, is a very difficult concept, no, to understand. So I'll give you some original passive revolution. I told you, comes from Ramsey. So I'll just refer it to you. You have to be going at a very steady pace, okay? Steady, slow. Steady and slow means the race. That's an old quote, but that's true, almost true. Because when you are slow, you're focusing every single word, then you get the confidence, and it's also space to think. Doing the reading as a ritual is not enough. Be mindful. Doing the reading to understand is what matters. To classify the argument in the reading, how many arguments are coming? 10, 20, 100? being able to classify the arguments, and sometimes even contrast and compare the argument and find the contradiction. No, so that for example, when you come to this structural reform period of the 1990s, you come to observe the contrast between the command economy or the state-controlled economy, and then the dominance of the middle class, and no, and coming up the urban middle class bourgeoisie, quote unquote, isn't it? Part Chatterjee. So, is it making sense to you guys? Is it? Okay. What is the time, by the way? All right. I think that's enough. If you guys go to the library, and if you could find this guy's book is, I think, Lakshmi or something, talking about agrarian economy. So you could find these people, by the way, in the library. All these people you will find in the library. Go to the Indian politics section, no? Rajni Kothari, Asutosh Varsne, Rudolph and Rudolph, Morris Jones, and Sudipto Kaviraj, and Rajni Kothari, and you will find their book. Nonetheless, you will have to one day read, and these are not like, but you have this Oxford Handbook of Indian Politics, no? Amazing book, no? But this book is like a compendium, very crispy compendium, not a lot of explanation. So sometimes you might find it a little complex to understand, no? But it is not very complex. The keywords that you find, you are not, please note them down and come with them to the class, okay? Whatever you find, even after Googling and so on, you just note them down and come to the class, quote unquote, okay? What if it is one word, you come to the class, and we will focus on that particular word, because that is how we should be doing the reading, focusing on what we do not know, always in the reading. When you are doing the reading, let me guide you how to do it. Open the reading and you do not focus on what you already know. Just highlight and notice what you are knowing for the first time. That is your notes. You can note it down, whatever new word comes in, and that becomes a very succinct, non-repetitive, and powerful note. No? Because whatever is contained in such note-making exercise is totally new to you. But then steadfastly adhere to the principle that I will not note down a single word which I know, and only that which I do not know. So that way you can make powerful notes also, if you are wondering, okay? Noting down the keywords that you do not know, complex. Oh my God. So, referring to this great guy. Oh my God. When I recorded my lecture, still recording.